Good evening. I'm Lisa Buckner, Managing Director of Communications for the City of Grand Rapids. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We apologize. We did have some technical difficulties, so we are a few minutes late getting started. So thanks so much for hanging with us. So I have the pleasure of being here this evening with our police chief, Eric Payne, to talk about our police department's draft strategic plan, as well as how we are reimagining policing in Grand Rapids. Thanks so much for being here, Chief. So good to be with you.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
So before we get started, before we dive into the strategic plan itself, just a few ground rules. So during this digital town hall, we will be asking Chief questions, and we will be monitoring your questions on Facebook in the live stream comment section. So that's a great opportunity for you to provide feedback and ask questions about the draft strategic plan. You also can call 311 or 616-456-3000, and Spanish interpretation is available for folks who want to provide comment or ask a question. And those comments, all the comments and all the questions that we get this evening will be forwarded to Chief. So those that we don't get to during the live stream, we will make sure that Chief Payne has all of those comments and questions. So as he works to finalize that strategic plan and present it September 29th to the City Commission, he will use that information that he gets from the community to finalize that plan. So we really hope that you take a few minutes to review the strategic plan at grandrapidsmi.gov/GRPD plan and provide feedback. So Chief, first of all, I just want to congratulate you because you're recently appointed by Governor Whitmer to the Michigan Commission on
Law Enforcement Standards.
There you go.
Yes.
So congratulations on that. We very much look forward to your leadership on that board.
Yes. The Michigan Commission of Law Enforcement Standards, MCOLS, as it's commonly known, is a licensing body for every police officer in the state of Michigan. They oversee training, hiring, retention. It's a standard by which every police officer is held to. And it is an honor to be appointed to the commission by the governor. For my over 30 years of experience, I'll take that to the board. I also think it's a testament to the Grand Rapids Police Department. We're viewed as one of the leaders in training throughout the state, and that the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police were the ones that nominated me, and I was told that's one of the reasons that they wanted someone from Grand Rapids here. So it is an honor. I look forward to serving.
That's fantastic. Great for you and great for our police department.
Yes.
So great. So let's talk a little bit about the strategic plan that you presented last week, right?
Yes.
City Commission. It's a lot happens in a week, right?
It is. I mean, it was a draft, and again, we'll be presenting the final one, but I'm really excited about moving forward and looking at how we could implement some things sooner rather than later. It covers three primary areas: safety, innovation, and engagement, which I believe is really important. And what we've heard from the community, we've had a number of reports that have been done. We've received input from the community, our elected officials, and just what's best practices within policing. So I'm excited to move those three things forward rather than later.
Yeah, that's great. So can you just talk a little bit about each one of those strategic priorities? So when we talk about safety, what exactly are we talking about?
We're talking about in collaboration with the community, making sure we're addressing the problems that exist in the community. We have held on to community policing for years now. We felt with the resources that we have in place now, it's important to get down to the neighborhood level. What may work in one neighborhood, I mean, Grand Rapids is a large, diverse community. What may work in one neighborhood may not work in the other. So I'm really excited, looking forward to having neighborhood-based policing where officers are accountable for their particular area, and in collaboration with the community, come up with problem-solving strategies to make the community safe. That's one area of the safety component. The other one's innovation. We have to reimagine how we're doing things, how we're addressing problems. And one of the first things is the homeless outreach team, where we've collaborated with the fire department to address the homeless issue in Grand Rapids. We're looking to bring on a third part of that. A person who's embedded in the mental health community, the behavioral health community, to assist our officers and firefighters in navigating the many systems that are out there. There's a lot of great work that's being done, but we're hoping to partner with this different groups to give resources to people that are that are homeless now. From that, we're also looking to have a mental health component, a behavioral health. Officers have been tasked with dealing with mental health since the late 90s. I think it could be done better than that. And having a person also who's able to navigate some of those areas that a police officer may not. In the homeless and also the mental health, jail is not the answer, nor is taking someone to the hospital every time we're called. We have to come up with a better way, and having a person who knows the systems will help us navigate and hopefully keep people out of jail and also out of the hospital. The third component is engagement, and that's engaging with the community. One of the areas that I'm really excited about is the Police Chiefs Advisory Team. They've had a chance to have input on this strategic plan and given me feedback. They're community members throughout the city of Grand Rapids from various organizations and backgrounds. I look to utilize them moving forward with everything from our budget to whenever a new policy is enacted or revised to get their feedback. So those are just some of the areas and the three different areas that we're working on with this new strategic plan.
That's great. So why is engagement so important to you and our police department?
Sure. I think this is a different era. We need to know how the community wants to be policed. Now we have to have certain standards that we must abide by, but having the community part of that process and solving problems, I think is huge. We have to make sure we're policing the community the way they're looking to be policed. One of the things I pointed out, and it was kind of under safety, on how we go about our job. I pointed out in my opening to the commission, having the mother who has a cracked tail light, is that a priority for the Grand Rapids Police Department? I recognize it's illegal and it should be fixed, but that should not be a priority for that mom is getting stopped every time and for when she's driving, or the father who may not have his license, who has to choose between going to work and then potentially being stopped and arrested. Like I said, I recognize as a police officer, those are illegal activities, but should that be our priority? My priority is going after violent offenders that are out there in the community that are more terrorizing the neighborhood. That is our focus, and that's where we're moving toward.
Thanks, Chief. So the plan's equity statement acknowledges that historically segments of the community, including people of color, low-income residents, and others, have been disproportionately impacted by policing practices and the criminal justice system. The plan also includes a commitment to provide fair and just services for all individuals. Why is that so important?
It is, and like historically, even today, I'm sorry for the way we've had police in the past. Like I mentioned earlier, the mom or the dad that's driving, what we would do whenever there was a major incident that occurred, we would flood that area with police officers, throw officers at it, and tell them to go out and enforce the law. It was effective. However, it wasn't what the neighborhood wanted. And I don't believe that's equitable treatment to solve a problem. Now we're going to be more strategic, where we'll look at hotspot policing. And part of the engagement is letting the neighborhood know this has occurred. You're going to see more police officers here. Our intent is to make your neighborhood safe. So that's part of the engagement that we're looking to do.
And speaking of that engagement, so the communities that have been disproportionately impacted, how do you plan to engage with those communities as part of this new neighborhood policing model and making sure that we're policing the community the way it wants to be policed.
One of our strategies is to have our captains to have monthly meetings with different neighborhood groups within their neighborhood. Again, as I mentioned, every neighborhood is different. So we need to be more engaged and be accessible to the community in having those discussions of what is their priority, what are they looking to have us do to be an effective partner in the problems that they see in their neighborhood. It could be something in some neighborhoods as a barking dog. There's other neighborhoods that's litter. Certainly there are neighborhoods where we're seeing violent crime. We need to be responsive to all of those things as much as we can, but primarily focusing on the violent crime, and then come up with strategies with the community on how they look to address it. They know who the people are also that are out there committing these acts. By engaging with them, getting feedback from the community will make us more effective as a police department.
So just a reminder, if you want to provide comments or questions during the live stream, you can do that via Facebook in the comment section, or you can call 311 or 616-456-3000. So Chief, there's been a lot of talk in the community and on the city commission about your department's budget. In presenting the strategic plan, you said it was created with the idea of utilizing resources you currently have in your department in mind. What do you mean by that?
So I think we're going to have to look at our department as a whole and moving different units around, different assignments, but it was created with the resources that we have. I understand that that's out there about a budget, and we're open to that discussion. But right now, I'm moving this plan forward with the resources that I have available. But we will continue to engage with those discussions. The city manager has laid out a plan on any type of adjustments that may occur in the future. But I felt that it was important that we get our plan in place and start implementing it at this time. What that will look like, it is my belief that it will be received well by the community, and we'll let the community talk about what resources that they would like to see within the Grand Rapids Police Department. But this plan was not derived around the budget itself. It's with the resources that I have available to me at this point.
All right, thanks. So a question that's come in via Facebook, getting back to crime in neighborhoods, we were just talking about that. How can the community help with minimizing crime in neighborhoods?
Sure. One of the things that I have found to bring out is Silent Observer. They are a great organization that helps provide us information anonymously to provide information, but it's all relationship building. And that's where our officers, when we get the neighborhood policing up and running, where they build trust within the community, where somebody is more free to discuss what's going on in the neighborhood. We have to build those relationships more than what we have now. With that will come trust, and I believe we can work together on solving those problems. But I recognize trust is an issue in neighborhoods. We have to build those relationships and let the community know that we're here to assist in solving those problems and doing our part. And then having the community do their part. I'm looking at also faith-based, being more involved in the churches. There's a number of churches. I've had discussions with several pastors who want to assist with us. They have a huge congregations. To be able to reach out and get the message across of what we're trying to accomplish. I believe being more involved in the schools is also a different approach. We have officers that are involved in schools, but we'll be in discussions about how we can more effectively work with the schools and have officers' interactions with young people.
Yeah, so our police department has had really good relationships with our neighborhood associations, community organizations, faith-based partners, our schools, but now it sounds like it's just taking a new lens, right? And determining how best we can leverage those partnerships.
Absolutely, and we're in this together. This is how we're going to make Grand Rapids, which is my vision. the safest, mid-sized, and most trusted department in the United States. That's a bold statement. I recognize it, but that's the vision I have for this department. I want departments coming to Grand Rapids and ask, how did you do that? How did you build those relationships? How were you able to see your vision come true? We'll never stop trying to do that, but building trust, making a safe city so everyone feels safe in the community is a vision that I have for this department, and we will attain it.
That's great. So another comment on Facebook, it is important to continue establishing good relationships with the community. How can you do that with the Latinx community?
Yeah, we have to be deliberate with that, making sure we're in every community, including the Latinx community. I did an interview earlier today, and it was for a Latinx radio station. And I pointed out what we need to do is make sure the community knows that they are a part of this community and stress that. A question that comes up is about status. Since one of the first policy I implemented here at Grand Rapids for our department was a foreign national policy. And that prohibits officers from asking status of anyone. So that is not part of what we do. That is not a priority for us. And that's how, as many times that I'm able to get before the community, just stress that over and over again, that a person's status is not our priority, nor is it what we look to do. In fact, an officer would be in violation for solely asking for someone's status. And that's something that we would address and hold the officer accountable. And we've had training, and our officers realize that. And I don't believe I have not received a complaint in the year that I've been chief. So just reinforcing that, trying to build the trust and the relationship that every member of this community is just that, a member of this community, and we're here to serve all segments.
And we have all of our police department policies online, right?
Yes.
So our police department's webpage. So if you just go to grandrapidsmi.gov and type in police department, you can see all of those policies.
Yeah, that's part of our transparency. I think the community needs to see the policies that we have in place and how we direct our officers. And I'm open to input on those also. So I'm open for good, constructive, constitutional, because I've received some input that maybe is not constitutional, but I'm open for all input, including our policies. And again, going back to my advisory team, they will be a part of developing and reviewing policy that we develop in our department.
So talk a little bit more about transparency. I know that's big for you, and that's very important for our police department. So what other ways are we committed to that? Is our police department committed to transparency?
We just launched our police department dashboard where you can go online. There's a number of different areas that you can look at, from our budget, our hiring, our hiring numbers, who we're hiring, our demographics on that. We will continue to build upon that and add to it, where the public can just go and see what their department looks like, our department looks like. So we'll continue to build on that. There's teams from the city that are working on it. And I think that's important for the community to see where we're at as a department. And there's always room for improvement. I recognize that, and we'll continue to work together.
So, Chief, I want to go back to the HOT team and just talk through. So COVID presented an opportunity, right? We had a challenge with COVID, and then there's this opportunity to rethink how we are addressing the needs of individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So can you just talk a little bit? I know we talked about the mental health component, but how is that weaved into our strategic plan? This is a 3-year strategic plan. So how can we make sure that the changes we make now will be lasting changes, will be the Grand Rapids way, right? So talk a little bit more about that and other proposed or real changes that we're making.
Sure. Well, how we have been operating with the homeless is taking care of the immediate problem and being done with it. I feel that there has to be follow-up involved, and that's part of what the team will be doing. But again, it's about building relationships with that community where dedicated officers that are interacting on a daily basis build those relationships and hopefully be able to navigate some of the systems that are available. There's tremendous, like I mentioned, there's a tremendous amount of work that's being done at this time with different organizations. But the HOT team will be designed to direct people to follow up on those services and continue with them. Again, like the mental health team that we look to establish, it's important that, again, it's not necessarily a police function when someone's in crisis to have to deal with it. Obviously, if it's a dangerous situation, we're going to be there. But again, having that mental health person that will be able to go and navigate those systems, I think is hugely important. Along with the fire department, you'll see our officers dressed down. Hopefully, not so it doesn't create an issue being in a uniform. They'll still be acting as a police officer, but it's about building those relationships. And then we'd like to further expand that eventually to potentially civilians taking some of the calls that we deal with as a police department, that a non-sworn person can take care of that does not require a police officer. Again, that's part of our strategic plan, finding opportunities for our officers to engage and have the time more with their neighborhoods and interacting with them. And those are just three of the areas that we're looking to implement that will free up our officers to have the time to do those type things.
So perhaps in the future, if I call the police, a uniformed officer may not show up at my door. It may be what we call a plainclothes officer or a non-sworn officer. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A non-sworn. We have looked at models throughout the country, and there are some models where non-sworn or personnel are taking those type of calls. Again, safety always have to be paramount and make sure the scene is safe. But if they could handle those type of calls, those are what we're looking to do with those type models.
Thanks, Chief. So another question has come in. Reimagining is a term being used across the country when it comes to policing, and I've heard you use it before in interviews. Can you tell us more about what you mean? Specific examples. So what do you mean by reimagining policing?
Well, those are good examples of how we have historically used sworn personnel to do jobs. One of the things we've already started to transition to non-sworn people within the police department to assist us in various departments that we have. I'm also in the process of interviewing for a executive level person within the department that is non-sworn, which we've always had a sworn person in, to come in and to assist us with the budget, policies and different things. So it's doing things differently. And I believe not just our department, but departments across the state, across the country have to look at policing differently. I pointed to earlier where you have an incident, and the historical way of dealing with that incident was to flood the area with officers and strict enforcement. That is not how we should be operating now. We need to be more strategic in our approaches to these different things. Using crime analysts, which we have hired to assist us in directing us to those areas, so that people who live in the community are having positive interactions with us, as opposed to the taillight stop that historically has happened. That's what was called for at the time. Now it's time to do something different in a different way and still be effective as a law enforcement officer.
So another question. There are a lot of things in this plan. How much is this plan going to cost?
Costs, again, it's the resources that we have at this point. Again, we're looking to have different departments within our department looked at, and maybe we don't need as many sworn personnel. This is a 3-year plan. When I give out the final on 29th of September, it's going to be 3 years and we're looking to implement some of these things. It could potentially reduce costs. It may require different resources in a different way. So my focus right now is implementing this plan and getting it up and running.
So when you presented the draft strategic plan last week before the city commission, for those of you who weren't tuned in or haven't yet seen that meeting, how was it received? How was the plan received by the city commission?
City commission, I've actually conversed with a few of them. I know city manager, he talked to, I believe, all of them. It was received well. They want to see the plan enacted and see what it looks like, also how we're going to get it in place. But it was received well by the commission.
So just a reminder, during the live stream, you're going to hear this a few more times, but I want to make sure everyone has a chance to provide comments or ask questions. You can provide comments or ask a question in the comment section on Facebook, or call 311 or 616-456-3000. You also, so well after the live stream is over, you can provide feedback at grandrapidsmi.gov/GRPD plan feedback. Again, that's grandrapidsmi.gov/GRPD plan feedback.
And Amy, if I may go back, we started a strategic plan back in 2019, and COVID kind of slowed us down with rescheduling and people who were in place working on it, working in different, so it slowed us down. Quite frankly, the recent national events and some of our own local events, what we had been working on was not a plan that I believe was what we needed at the time. So we did a heavy lift, and city manager helps provide some resources for us to be able to come up with this particular plan. So that's why it's still in draft form, and we're continuing to work on it. But a lot of great work by other departments was done over a very short period of time, because we did listen to the community. And what we had been working on, some of that was incorporated into this plan. However, we needed a different direction, and that's what we're looking to do with this plan. So to go with implementing what it costs, that's where I'm looking to get this plan up and running, and we'll have to see.
So yeah, I mean, I recall for the past 5 years, right? Our police department has listened, community has provided feedback, and I know that served as a foundation. And then now, as we move forward, there's additional engagement. Folks can provide feedback, and you'll use that feedback to finalize the plan.
Absolutely. But it's time to take action now, and that's why I'm looking forward to implementing this plan. It's, again, a 3-year plan, but there are things that we'll be able to do right now, and we'll work on some of those, some of the other things in the future. Technology, we've been engaged with technology as part of the plan also. We've met with the ACLU on a few things. So, I mean, it wasn't just done over the last 2 or 3 weeks. This is something that we've received input for like the last 5 years. But now it's time to get the plan in action.
So another question that's come through is, how is this plan addressing all the increased violence? Our community is very concerned. So just this past weekend, we had a number of criminal activity, right, that took place in our city. And that's not uncommon to have a string of events over one night or 2 nights. Yeah. So talk a little bit about how the strategic plan will address that.
Well, again, I really believe it comes back down to working with the neighborhoods on what they're looking for. No neighborhood wants those acts of violence occurring in where they live. Building those relationships, building trust, mutual trust between the police department and the community members that live out there. I think that's a big part of it. I just touched on the technology. That's something that's in the plan of looking at the use of drones. That can respond, not surveil the community, but respond to those type calls that are in progress, where officers can get real life intelligence from it. Those are some of the things that were as part of the plan. It doesn't spell out saying we are going to stop this, but this is a plan that will allow us to engage with the community and work together, building trust. The level of violence is not acceptable. One incident is too many in my book. We need to work on reducing the level of violence. I've also heard it said we're a mid-sized city, but we do have big city problems. We have to continue to work on those problems, and we have to do it with the community.
And absolutely. So I remember when we first started talking about that proposed drone program, that will not happen without robust community engagement, right?
Absolutely. And it would need city commission approval. And before we would even take it to the commission, we want to make sure that the community is informed and engaged. And again, it's listening to the community. If the community is looking to have that type of program in place, we need their affirmation that that's what they want before we were to even take it to the commission to get that type of technology approved.
Is there a timeline, Chief, for that? Have we set a timeline for that, for the proposed drone program?
We have not,
Okay.
Not for that particular part of it. There is a timeline that we're working now. We just assigned our command staff to the many different strategies that are listed, or we're working on assigning them. We'll probably know exactly tomorrow. But they'll take each one of those strategies and work on it, and they'll be held accountable to make it happen. And I will want to know, when can we make these things happen? So it may not be by the 29th, but we will report out what we're looking at on timelines as far as the plan is concerned.
Okay. So getting back to our police department's budget, a question has come in. So the conversation around defunding of our police department. So we know this conversation is being played out across the country. So we know that our police department is not unique in being part of that conversation. So this individual wants to know, how do calls for defunding our police department affect police officers working on our streets?
It's concerning. We have a young department, and I have said in the past that defunding our police department, or what's being talked about, would be a significant hit to our personnel, and it's concerning to them. But again, we have this plan in place that we're looking to implement with the resources that we have now. The city manager has laid out what his plan is as far as any type of budget adjustments, but I have to move forward with this plan and implement it, and to show what we're attempting to do with our department. So
we knew we would see retirements. It's cyclic. And so we have a number of folks who are planning to retire because they've reached that retirement age. You just mentioned that we have a young police department. Having a strategic plan, what does it mean to them? Having this operational plan, it's a roadmap for them.
Exactly.
So what does it mean for our police department, for perhaps those younger officers just starting their law enforcement career?
We haven't had a strategic plan since the late 90s. So it was important for me to have a roadmap, because a part of the strategic plan is not just what we're looking to do. It's getting the community involved in it, which is part of what we're doing here tonight, along with all the other community feedback. But it gives the officers direction of knowing what we're looking and trying to accomplish. Putting our value statement out there. This is what we believe in. Service. Every police officer I've ever interviewed for a job said they want to be here to help people and serve the community. We have to make sure that they're reminded of that, and they're doing an outstanding job of serving this community, and I applaud them every day with the things that are being talked about. Equity has to be embedded in everything that we're doing. Integrity, are we doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons? And then accountability. So it all goes back around to those values that we have set forward for the officers to know this is the direction, and looking at the police department of where we need to be.
I'm glad you brought up accountability. So,
Yes.
how will the community know our police department is tracking against the strategic plan? How will folks be able to make sure? Do you plan to present occasionally, provide sort of that progress report, if you will? You mentioned the police metric dashboard. Is that another area where folks can sort of track our progress? Talk a little bit about that in terms of accountability.
Yes, I mean, it's everything, like I said, our budget, internal affairs, demographics, our hiring, what we have done. That is another avenue where someone could look and see our police department. I think we're going to be reporting out our strategic plan progress, because it will have metrics involved and measure. Well, we have the outcomes that we're looking to obtain, and then there'll be metrics attached to it, and quarterly we'll be reporting them out to the community where we stand with the plan itself. Again, it's a 3-year plan, so that's how we're looking to get the information out. And again, part of the strategy, the engagement, it will continuously come up through these 3 years when we're out engaging the community, providing updates.
So we have another question. It seems that more and more youth are getting involved in criminal activity. How does this plan address that?
Again, being involved in the schools, I think we can do a better job of doing that. Especially GRPS, who have been great partners for us over the years. But to continue to build upon that, there's a new superintendent. I'm hoping to meet her soon and discuss some of these things. Getting kids at a young age. We've had a tremendous amount of engagement with our on-base program. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Camp O'Malley this summer because of COVID, but we continue with our Boys and Girls Club, the 3 centers that we have, Youth Commonwealth. But to continue to build on those type of things where we're engaging kids at a younger age and have the ability to interact more with them. That's what we're looking to do. It doesn't specifically address it, but freeing up officers is what I'm looking to do, where they'll be able to do that type of engagement.
So let's talk about that, because in the era of COVID, we know our friends at Grand Rapids Public Schools will be starting the school year online. So how, as a police department, how will we stay true to that commitment to engaging our youth, knowing it's a little bit more difficult? So what are the plans for that?
Again, COVID has had an impact on all of our engagement. Of the social distancing that we must do has created issues for us being able to engage more. But our Boys and Girls Club centers have been open or interacting with kids, being able to come there. But yeah, COVID has had a big impact on us, and moving forward, we'll have to see what that looks like, on how quickly we can get back into the schools when the schools are open, when it's safe for everyone. The last thing we want to do is be contributing to people being affected by COVID. So that has had a huge impact on our engagement with everything that we're doing.
So we have a community engagement unit, and I know that they are more active on social media than ever before.
Yes.
I know we had a police officer do a TikTok dance with some kiddos in the neighborhood. Perhaps we just have to get creative, right? We have to use technology and social media and all the other online virtual platforms that we have to be able to connect.
Yeah. I'm challenged with technology, but I did hear about the TikTok that was done. That's great. And that's the type of engagement we're looking to do. And I will touch on another position that we're looking to bring on board to the public information. officer who will be working with us to put that type of, there's a lot of great work being done out there. So we need to put that out to the public more where they can see the work that is being done, where it's not just enforcement. Our officers are trying to engage and to be able to send that message out there that we're here to interact with people. We have to change from a warrior mentality to a guardian mentality. We still need to be the warrior when it's called upon, but having that guardian mentality, I think, is huge, and that's moving forward with all law enforcement. We need to be doing more of that.
What does that mean? Tell us a little bit more about that guardian mentality.
Yes, you're not acting all the time in a law enforcement capacity. You're here to interact, work with the public. Doing TikTok dances and things like that. There was a time where it was thought all police officers had to keep warrior mentality 100% of the time. But we have to be able to respond in the warrior mentality. I mean, with that mindset, there's been incidents throughout the country where officers have been called upon to go into active shooter situations. Our officers are facing that constantly. But having that guardian mindset is important for officers to be able to truly engage with the community, be able to interact with the knowledge that you may have to split second turn into that warrior. That's what we're looking to do here with our department.
So another question that's come in is, I heard that there's a freeze in hiring right now, but we need more diversity in our police department. How will we accomplish that?
Again, working with the city manager, not to go back on the fund, we are in a recession right now, and we'll have to see what the city finances are aside from any defunding that is being talked about. I already defunded $1.5 million out of this budget already this year. So we'll have to look and see what the funding is to move forward with COVID. We are in a recession that we still have to work through and see what the funds are that are available. But again, working with the city manager, what's available and what we're able to do moving forward is something that we still have to work out.
So let's get back to that vision. I know I think you said the second part of it, but the vision for our police department to partner with the community to make Grand Rapids the safest mid-sized city and make our police department the most trusted police department in the U.S. So you believe that our strategic plan is a good roadmap for that?
Absolutely. And again, you're right. I touched on it, but didn't say that as part of the vision. It's with the community. Mm-hmm. We need the community to make the community safe. And also, we need to mutual trust between the police department and the community. And that's my vision for our department moving forward. We can't just do it exclusively. We need the community to be a part of it.
And I know our Police Academy, we just released information that despite COVID, we're still moving forward with our Citizen Police Academy. So talk a little bit about that and what, if somebody signs up to be a part of that, what they can expect.
It's 9 weeks of behind the curtain view of the police department. You get everything. And I wish every member of the community could go through it, because there's opportunities for the community members and also the department. The department to be transparent. And the question is, why do you do it this way? We show it in this academy, but also to get feedback from the community, what they expect from their police department. So it's a great opportunity. We will do it with safety in mind and making sure that we're practicing all precautions and PPE. But I think it's vital. We've had it for over 20 years that we continue that process of having the Citizens Police Academy and be able to interact with the public like that.
So I know there's more information on our website. Yeah. So if you go to grandrapidsmi.gov and type in, I think it's Citizen Police Academy. I think you can search that way, or obviously just go to our police department webpage and you'll find that. Yeah. So Chief, another question has come in. When it comes to relations with the community, what did you and your department learn from the events in May and June, and how would you do things differently?
We need better communication. And from what I learned from that, I've met with various groups that had the different rallies, protests, and different things. We need better communication, and they need to maintain those lines of communication. I think that's crucial. We had different events even after the May 30th riot that occurred. And I think a big part of that was the communication we established with the organizers. And it's for the safety, and something I was able to explain to one group about marching in the road. It's not that I just don't want you marching in the road without a permit. I'm concerned with the safety of those doing it. When you're in the roadway, there's been incidents across the country where people who are being peaceful in the roadway have become victims of cars running into them and different things. So that's a concern. And after I explain that, it's not just I want to keep you on the sidewalks to keep you from being able to have your protest. Your safety is as important to us also. They kind of understood where we were coming from, and we've been able to work with different groups moving forward. But I really believe the communication and actually listening. Again, this strategic plan is somewhat of a result where we pivoted to get a more robust strategic plan together after that. This is listening to them also.
Chief, I know you participated in
Of those events. Talk a little bit about that, both from a personal standpoint and then as police chief.
Yeah. Well, as African American, I realize in this part of our equity value, historically, there's been people of color, blacks, browns, people who have been marginalized in the system. So participating in those events as a person, I believed in it. So that's why I participated. As police chief, it was the right thing to do. Policing has to change. Law enforcement has to change and make sure we are not listening. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we've been hearing. Now we need to take action. And this plan that we have mapped out now will address some of those issues moving forward.
So another
You
question.
talk about doing things differently in your plan to fight violence. What about something like a gun buyback program?
That is something we're looking into. What we have learned over the years has been probably 30 years since the Grand Rapids Police Department has had one. What we have learned over the years is that they're not really effective at getting those that are out there committing violent crime. They're not bringing their guns in. But what it does, in my opinion, and I've always believed this, it gets one gun off the street that somebody may leave unsecured that is getting stolen out of a car or in a house. And it's just one less gun off the street. That's where the majority of our guns that we're seeing out there in these violent acts, they're being taken from like gun stores. Throughout the region, not necessarily in Grand Rapids, from home invasions, people not securing their weapons in the car properly. So that's part of and there will be an opportunity to talk about that. Make sure you're securing your weapons. So it's something that I've actually had a discussion with a minister about. So we'll be exploring that.
And I know something else you've talked about is a cure violence program or something similar. Can you talk a little bit about that and what it would mean for our community?
It's been discussed for years. In fact, back when I was a captain, I was sitting in on meetings. This evidence-based crime reduction strategy that doesn't necessarily involve the police department. It's community-led, community-run, community people doing it. I've been in favor of it for years. It's something that we're looking to explore. Funding is an issue that we have to figure out where the funding is going to come from. But I've been supportive of cure violence for years.
So we're getting close to the end, and I know you have another community event to
I
go
do.
to. You're kind of a popular guy. You're kind of a big deal. What's next with the strategic plan? So you talked about how you're already starting to implement some of the action steps. We talked about how you plan to present the final plan at the end of September. What else can you talk about in terms of next steps for the strategic plan?
It's a plan that has been long overdue. Like I said, when I first became chief, I knew I wanted a strategic plan, again, to give direction to officers. We're in the process of finalizing it, and I'm excited about moving forward with it. It's something that gives direction that had not been there previously. But I'm really excited too about the input I've received from the community in forming the plan, and they're going to be a big part of making this a success. We need to work with the community, and I am committed to doing it. My command staff is committed to doing it, and we will move forward with it.
One question that's going to squeeze in before we run out of time. Neighborhood associations are active in Grand Rapids. How closely are you working with them, and how? We touched on that a little bit, but if you want to just kind of expand on it.
In my 30 years here at Grand Rapids, neighborhood associations have been a big part of the police department and the community that we serve. I don't see that changing, and we will continue to work very closely with our neighborhood associations.
And I know we just had a few who were part of our media event where we talked about gun violence.
Yes.
And I know that they're very supportive of you, Chief, and what our police department is doing in terms of trying to get those illegal guns off our street.
Our department is we're supportive of neighborhood associations. They've been very important to connecting with the community and having officers engaged in those neighborhood events. We are supportive of it.
So before we wrap up,
say good night. Anything else you want to add about the strategic plan or policing in Grand Rapids, or whatever's on your heart and mind, as the mayor likes to say during commission meetings?
No, I'm excited about the plan, and as I mentioned in my vision, working with the community, having the safest and most trusted department in the United States. And I believe the plan we need to continue to work with, but it really comes down to working with the community and our commitment to making sure that we're addressing the issues now at a neighborhood level of what's occurring out there in the city of Grand Rapids. I'm excited to move forward with it and look forward to working with everyone.
Great. So
Thank you so much for your time, Chief. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for everything that our police department does for our community. Really looking forward to continuing to work with you and help our police department stay true to the strategic plan and help communicate it. So if you still haven't had a chance to review the plan, encourage you to do so at grandrapidsmi.gov/GRPD plan. And then to provide feedback, you can do the same at grandrapidsmi.gov/GRPD plan feedback. We are so grateful that you joined us this evening. Thank you so much for your engagement and for working with us as we continue to reimagine policing in Grand Rapids. Thanks, and have a great night. That was great, Chief.